Okay, is this and you got the recorder on, Adrian?
We are recording.
Oh, great. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your attendance this morning. Let's go ahead and call the Finance and Procurement meeting to order and have a roll call vote, or roll call, please.
Yes, thank you. Member Valle. Member Valle. Member Marquez.
Present.
Thank you. Member Kavanaugh.
Present.
Member Nara.
Present.
Chair Hannon.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Let's move on to the agenda. Public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on any item that's not currently on the agenda. Adrian, do we have any emails? Anybody waiting to comment on anything not on the agenda?
We have no speakers for public comment.
Great. So let's go ahead and move on. The next item is item 3, approval of the minutes from June 10th, 2022. Any corrections? If not, can I get a motion to accept?
I'll move approval of the minutes from June 22nd, 2022.
Kavanaugh, second. Marquette. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Member Narum and Member Kavanaugh. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Kavanaugh was the second. Nara
Yes.
was the, okay.
Narum was the, yes.
Great. Yes, thank you. Member Valle. Member Marquez.
Yes.
Member Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Member Nara.
Yes.
Chair Hannon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item number 4, audit programs records. I'm sorry, report. This is an informational item. I'll turn it over to staff.
Yes. Hold on one second. I'm just moving staff over. Speak to this item.
Hello.
Hi, Jason. Welcome.
How's it going? Good to see
Good.
you.
So Howard had another addition to the family, huh?
Yes. That something's more important than us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Howard and his family. Please extend our best wishes as a committee to him. But I know that we're in real good hands with you, Jason. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. He was able to share some photos with staff. It's a beautiful baby boy. So we're very happy for him. So yeah.
Hey, Jason, just to let you know, your audio breaks up a little bit. I'm not sure why that might be, just to let you know right from the outset.
Okay, maybe if I turn off my video, it'll help with the bandwidth. Maybe that'll be something that can help. So
Great, that might work.
okay, yeah, I apologize. But it looks like we're ready to go. Great. So we're gonna, the couple items that we'll go through today, hopefully will be quick and painless. So let's start with the audit update. Adrian, if you could please go to the next screen. So a little background, as you know, each year an independent auditor reviews all of our financial records for the previous year. This year they're reviewing for the fiscal year ending on June 30th, 2022. And we are on track to have it be completed by October for the October board meeting. There is an ad hoc committee specific for the audit, which I think a couple of you are on. And it is established so that board members can confer with the auditor independently from staff at a couple of checkpoints during the audit. The first committee meeting was on the 11th of August, and the next one is scheduled for the 26th of September. We are, and as I mentioned, we are on track for October delivery of the audit. Next slide, please. Great. So this is a Gantt chart of the timeline of the audit process and where we're at. The green indicates these are things that are completed. I guess flesh colored would be things in progress, and the blue is what is currently happening. As you can see, we're currently having that FAP meeting. Steps moving forward, you can see that the ad hoc committee meeting is scheduled for the 26th. we are going to the draft financial statements are now actually we're a little bit ahead, so those are in review by the auditor right now, as well as test balances. So on the week of the 26th, we should be getting a draft back in which staff can then review the financial numbers, which then it will then go through a cycle of, you know, back and forth until we reach a final opinion, which we should then be able to produce at the board meeting. Any questions on that process?
I have a question. What time is the meeting on the 26th scheduled for?
That's a good question. I believe it was 1, but let me confirm.
Okay. I think I'm on that.
Yeah. Let's see here. It looks like it is scheduled at 3 p.m.
That's correct. Kathy, Megan just sent out an email a couple days ago scheduling that from 3 to 4 on the 26th.
Okay.
Any other questions, colleagues?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, I just want to report, this is Richard Valle. I've been listening in, but I was an attendee. I just got into the meeting.
Great. Supervisor Valle, it's always a pleasure to have you, my friend.
Okay, I'll mute unless I'm going to say something. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions regarding this item by any of my
Yes.
colleagues?
It looks
Yes,
like-
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. You may be able to answer this, or maybe staff, but I was just curious. Do we have a list of the members that are serving on the ad hoc committee?
Yes, we do have a list. I can bring that up real quick.
Thank you.
Looks like okay, so it looks like Director Hannon, Director Relio, and Director Schaefer, and are on the immediate list. And I know that Director Narum is on it, but I don't. Oh, maybe if I scroll down, there she is. Director Narum, can you confirm that you received the invite?
I am checking now on my phone. Who would it have been sent from?
It would have been sent from either Nick or Megan.
What's Megan's last name?
Megan Smith.
That one's not. Let me look.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see you here either. So I will reach out to her to be sure that you get added to this.
Okay, thank you.
And
Yeah,
so the
not-
reason
it's
why,
not coming up.
sorry. So the reason why I was asking, in the future, if this comes, well, it's going to come back to us in October, but if we can maybe just have a slide or include on one of the slides the current list of members. And then do we have this information also provided on our website? I haven't looked at our website for a while, but I was just curious, do we list all our committee assignments and who actually serves on those bodies?
So,
You know, we do for our formal committees, but not our ad hoc committees.
yes.
Okay,
So
is that
this is
something
an
that
ad
could
hoc.
be added? Mhm.
Typically, no. Typically, we do not,
Okay.
because ad hoc committees are not necessarily always,
Meeting, yeah,
well, they're not always meeting. They're ad hoc in nature, so they're not necessarily regular. And so we do not report out regularly on who serves on our various ad hoc committees. Ad hoc committees in general, too. They predominantly serve to support staff, in sort of helping staff. And so as such, they are appointed, or the requests to join are made by staff, as opposed to our formal committees where those are appointments made by the chair and the vice chair.
okay. So maybe in the future, can we just list those individuals in the slide just so everybody knows who's serving on the ad hoc committee?
Yeah, for this one, for sure. Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's it,
Absolutely.
Chair. Thank you.
Jason, do me a favor and stop screen sharing.
That's Adrian. Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry, Adrian. Thank you, Adrian. The only question I have, Jason, on the draft audit, will the ad hoc committee have an opportunity to review that a day or two in advance of the actual meeting on the 26th?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if a qualified, we can provide unaudited financials for review, but I don't think that we'll have finalized audited financials for review at that point.
Okay. It's always important to try to review some of these documents in advance of a meeting, so we're prepared and can ask the appropriate questions and be mindful of what's moving forward. Any questions? Any other questions from my fellow board members on this item? Seeing none. Are there any questions or anybody in the audience that has questions on this item, Adrian?
There are no speakers for this item.
Great. So let's move on to item number 5, credit facility. Again, this is an informational item as well. Jason?
Thank you very much. And this is, so thank you, Adrian. The next slide, please. So to give a little background, we currently hold an $80 million credit facility, a revolving credit agreement with Barclays Bank. This agreement was entered into in March 15th of 2018 and was originally set at $50 million. In August of 2019, we amended that to allow a portion of it, $30 million, to be used for issuances of letters of credit. These letters of credit help us in that we can use them in lieu of cash for collateral deposits or to secure mark-to-market agreements with other various counterparties. This helps increase our overall credit ability with these counterparties and can help us leverage to purchase or enter into agreements for larger volumes, among other things. In addition to that amendment, we were also able to negotiate with Barclays to reduce the credit facility reserve fund from 17 million down to 7 million. So that allowed 10 million extra dollars to be freed up for working capital purposes. Then a few months later, we did some stress analysis, and this was in anticipation of the inclusion of the additional communities. We decided that we needed to increase the capacity up to 80 million. This would allow for more flexibility and working capital dry powder, if you will, in case we needed it, as we were expecting more volume and more costs to be associated with the new communities. So we increased it to 80 million. This was approved by the board with 60 million available for cash, and we increased the portion that could be used for letters of credit up to 35 million. With that amendment, the credit facility was extended to expire on December 19th of 2022, and that is coming up, at least for the cash portion. The letters of credit portion, they extend to allow for those letters of credit to reach expiration, and so that portion is extended out to July 31 of 2024. So that is the basic background of our current situation with our current credit facility with Barclays. Next slide, please, Adrian. First, any questions on that slide before we move on?
Yeah, real quickly, what is you mentioned that the interest rate was lowered. What was the interest rate previous and what is it currently?
That's a good question. Our interest rate previously was 5.25% above the LIBOR, and with our negotiation, we got it down to 2.5%.
And with interest rates rising, what is the current interest rate on that credit line?
Exactly. So the current interest rate that we have with our existing facility is still at 2.5% plus LIBOR, which is actually going to be, that system is going to be retired next year, but it is still currently operational. So the LIBOR rate, I can look up to see what it is today. Let's see. The LIBOR rate is currently at 2.81%. So we're 2.5% in addition.
Above that.
Yeah.
Okay. And of the $80 million credit line, are we utilizing that entire credit line at this point, or just simply holding that for possible needs in the future?
Very good. Adrian, could you please return to the previous slide? Just real quick, just so that we're right. Thank you. So we have not had any draws on that credit line. We do have letters of credit that were issued. We had about $20 million of letters of credit issued, and the rate on the letters of credit was 1.7% flat rate.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so no additional LIBOR there. That's just there is an additional rate that to hold the facility, which is called it's the commitment fee, and that is I believe at 0.95% of what we haven't drawn on.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from my colleagues on that first portion?
No questions.
No.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jason.
Great. So Adrian, next slide, please. Thank you. So in light of the Western Energy bankruptcy last year, Barclays has made an executive high-level decision to not renew or extend any credit exposure into the CCA space at this time. As such, they are not going to renew our credit facility. So with that, we did, and we probably would have done this anyway, but we did conduct a formal RFP to solicit offers to replace that credit facility. We had several, the appropriate amount of respondents, several, and we conducted interviews with those respondents and followed up with a few rounds of negotiations on some terms with the highest scoring of the respondents. We did consider, some additional goals other than rates and, pricing and locations and stuff like that, including like ESG goals, adherence to the RFP detail, and of course our internal scoring methodology that we used during the interview process. Now, one thing that's making this a little bit different than just continuing the Barclays is that we are also seeking to upsize this facility as from the 80 million. We're planning to increase that, and the reason why is there are several reasons. One is we're bringing on much more load with the incorporation of Stockton, so we do want to kind of prepare that we have some working capital capacity for that. Additionally, we're in a very volatile market. Prices, we're seeing all-time highs on natural energy or natural gas prices and energy prices as well. And also there is some political considerations in that the risks of higher collateral postings are increasing, specifically for load-serving entities such as ourselves. This is with the CPUC and working to kind of make changes on something that's called it's the FSR. I can't remember what it stands for at this moment, but it's what we have to post with PG&E in case something happens to us and PG&E has to fulfill our load. So there's a kind of backup posting that we have to do. And stress tests show that with this kind of these risk factors, that there is some need to there is some additional risk that we're entering into with these turbulent markets that may require that that working capital may get to a point where we may have to use the credit facility in order to not use our reserves. And maintaining reserves is a primary goal for EBCE in order to maintain our credit rating with Standards & Poor's. So any questions on this slide at this time?
Well, how much additional credit are you seeking
So we are
get.
seeking to expand it to 200 million.
from 80 million?
Correct. There is, there will be more details on that number on the next slide.
Okay.
The only question I have, Jason, and I was not aware, well, two things. One, was Barclays required to give us notification that they were no longer going to provide us this credit? And did they comply with that term?
They absolutely did, yes.
Okay, is that, what was that term in terms of notification that we're no longer going to extend that credit, just out of curiosity?
So they had to give us 120 days notification.
Is that something, as we move forward with additional opportunities to get credit, that we might want to look to maybe extend that time period for notification, just so that we're not kind of, I don't think we're doing that here, but I'd hate to find us scrambling to try to replace that credit line.
So, all right, so to be, yeah, so that's a good point. And let me be a little bit more clear on that. Barclays is not allowed in the agreement to cancel the notification, to cancel the line of credit at any point during the agreement. EBCE has the, in our current agreement, has the ability to terminate the agreement with Barclays with 5 days notice. That is within our right to do so. Barclays does not have the ability to terminate the agreement until the expiration date, the termination date of the agreement itself. And if they are not going to continue with, possibly providing us, then they have to give us 120-day notice from, relative to that date. So they cannot just arbitrarily turn it off. But that said, that is a pretty industry standard kind of timeline.
Okay, thank you. Just real quickly and briefly, please, could you describe the Western Energy bankruptcy? I'm assuming that they were a CCA. I'm not aware of the situation that that resulted in that bankruptcy, but I'm always now worried, of course, that some of the decisions that they made, I'd like to think that with our leadership here, we're in a much more favorable position. But could you briefly describe what happened with Western Energy?
Absolutely.
Jason, I'm happy to jump in and do that if you'd like.
Yeah,
If you want to do it.
please
by all
take
means.
this one.
Sure. So Western Community Energy, I think they faced a number of circumstances, and I'm going to try to speak as much to just sort of the public record here. I'm sure there's a lot of rumors, but I'll speak to the public record that as I know it. So Western Community Energy, smallish CCA serving in Western Riverside County. I think they had somewhere in the 50 to 100,000 accounts range, so quite a bit smaller than us, 1/5 or less our size. If you recall, in 2020, much like this past summer, we had a really significant heat wave where there were really, extreme conservation measures and extreme energy prices. Western Energy launched right before that. So, and then COVID hits. And so part of Western's challenges, as I understand it, were that they launched right before COVID. Then with that, you had quite high levels of customer non-payment, particularly in the communities they serve. They had even higher levels of arrearage than we did. They didn't have the benefit in our case, we had multiple years of sort of building cash reserves and the like. And then, they had the double whammy of summer of 2020. And then in the end, I think there were also some issues around their willingness to raise rates. So, in the end, you can always raise rates to a certain, high enough to a point to recover those costs. There must be sort of a board political will to do so. So I think those were the primary three factors. I think none of those three factors really are relevant to us.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jason.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, please.
It's Richard Valle. The $200 million figure that you mentioned, which is our goal, what percentage of the overall budget does that represent?
Roughly, what, a third of our,
Yeah,
about a third of our operating expense.
correct.
And the reason we want to achieve that goal is because of our Standard & Poor's rating. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. The not dipping into our reserve funds is one of them, if we can possibly avoid it. Given that, as you will see on the next slide, that if our rating decreases, our interest rates will go up. So keeping that volume for working capital is a goal. Yes.
So how long, we're currently at 80 million. How long do you think it'll take to get that number?
Well, our current reserves are set at 90 million.
Okay.
We are right. And so we do have plans to contribute to that this year, which will be forthcoming, I believe, hopefully in the October, but definitely by the November board meeting. And so this 20 million is additional liquidity that isn't really on our books. It is available to us, should we need it. And if we do hit, the stress tests do show that we might, there may be some rough patches coming up, and this would just give us the buffer that we need to endure through those, should it become a worst case scenario.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair.
My pleasure. Any other questions from my board members before we move on to the next slide? Go ahead, Jason.
Great. Next slide, please, Adrian. So this gives some of the terms of the facility. We are still negotiating non-financial terms, but the financial terms are settled at this point. And what we're seeing is, or what we have is, we have an undrawn fee that is 0.25% of any unused balances. This is a dramatic improvement to the Barclays, which is 0.95%. Our letter of credit applicable margin is 1.4%, which is lower than our current facility at 1.7%. There is an issuance charge of 0.25% on the nominal face value. That is, pretty much an industry standard. We don't have that with the Barclays, but it still is not a large cost. It's a one-time issuance fee. Now, if we do any cash draws, it will be tethered to the secured overnight financing rate, also called the SOFR, which as of September 9th, when I put this slide together, was 2.28%. I can look it up to see what it is now. And today it is 2.27%. So we're still, right about at the same rate. And so that would be so add to that the applicable margin, which is the 1.4% from the letters of credit. So we're getting a reduction in the rates compared to our current facility as well. Now, the undrawn fee in the applicable margin of 1.4% can increase in the event that S&P downgrades us from an A rating. There is a ceiling in which that rate can increase. And so if, for example, S&P removes our rating or altogether, then I believe it's 7% on top of the SOFR if for any cash draws, and 7% for any letters of credit issuances. A default rate will result in the event that if we default on any payments or any other conditions of the agreement, in which case the applicable margin will increase from 1.4 to 2.9%. It'll increase by 1.5%, and the SOFR will add an additional 2% onto that. That is in the the rare event of a default, which naturally we're not intending to incur. An additional component of the facility terms is that there's no reserve requirements. We are not required to hold any revenues in a reserve account or restrict any money. So that makes it quite favorable.
How's it going?
Sorry, Nick.
Oh, no, sorry. No.
Yep. So that makes it quite favorable compared to some other the other applicants that we interviewed with. And so I realize now it hasn't been mentioned here, but the bank that we're negotiating with is Union Bank, and they are local to Bay Area in origin.
Any questions from my colleagues on this slide?
I do.
Kathy, go ahead.
Thank you. So these terms look really good. I guess my question is, so the terms are really good, but you're looking to increase the reserve 1.5 times, or I'm sorry, not the reserve, but the credit. What does that do to the total cost of the undrawn fee as compared to where we are now?
Very good. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I actually have prepared a slide for that I see now did not make it into the deck, but I do have it. If
Okay.
you could switch screen sharing abilities to me, I can then present that. Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, I apologize. It did not make it into the draft. I thought it had, but can you see the slide that says good faith estimates?
Yes.
Great. So let me, I'll just zoom in. Part of, and this is in the board document that will be issued. So I did make sure it was in that one. So per California Government Code Section 5852.1, we are required to provide some financial impacts as associated. And these are provided by PFM Financial Advisors. They are a financial consultant on coordinating this deal. And the total, according to them, the total maximum interest payment would be $22,080,000 under the following assumptions. And the assumption is, of course, that we draw the full $200 million on day one, and we hold that for the full year, or for the full 3 years of the term. Obviously, that is the maximum interest that we would then owe. And it also assumes the SOFR is at the 9.8 rate through the entire term, and that we maintain our A credit rating. If $0 are drawn, then the total maximum interest payment would be the undrawn fee, and that's $500,000 per year, or $1.5 million total over the life of the facility. We have an estimate of, we're not anticipating any cash draws at this time, but we will need to post letters of credit. We have an estimate of, if we issue 50 million credit from day one, and no cash is drawn, then the full interest payment on that facility would be $3,225,000 for the 3 years.
So on the undrawn fee of $500,000 a year under this new proposal, or actually it's more than a proposal, how does that compare to what our undrawn fee is currently?
Yes. Give me 1 second. I can tell you. It's actually less expensive. Our undrawn fee at 0.95% on the 60 million that we have not drawn is 570,000
Okay,
per year.
so that's really good news.
Yeah. So we're getting more for less.
Right. Okay,
And that's a
think
good
that-
point.
I think that's it. So actually, there's the 70,000 favorable number with this, I guess, for the following year's budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for including this slide, Jason. Excellent question, Kathy. Colleagues, any other questions regarding this particular slide?
Let me share again.
I just have two quick questions, Jason. One, when would we anticipate the agreement being finalized with Union Bank?
Yeah. One second. So there is a couple of due process steps that need to occur first. One is we do, given what the board might result with one of the other major items that we will be facing with the addition of, Stockton. We do need to file an amendment for the JPA before we can enter into this agreement. If that is indeed what the board decides. If the board decides to to allow Stockton to join, we then have to wait for that JPA amendment to be finalized before we can enter into this agreement. Now, given that, we anticipate, possibly about 2 to 3 weeks left of non-financial term negotiations and, deal closures with Barclays to make the transition.
I really do appreciate in your slides you expressing kind of a worst case scenario. Should there be a drop in our credit rating? Should we default? I think it's important that this board and this committee be aware that we anticipate keeping our A rating, but should these things happen, these are the likely costs to this organization. So I appreciate that information. I would anticipate you're not expecting or anticipating any drop in our credit rating anytime in the near future, are you, Jason?
No, not at all. There is a maintenance period coming up with that where we check in with S&P and, they will, of course, request some financials from us and do their own evaluation. But our financials are holding up stronger than we had presented to them. So I'm not anticipating any change in our rating at this time.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions on this item before we move on to the next item?
Could I ask one more, please?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Jason, given that it sounds like the costs of this agreement are actually lower than with Barclays, when we are able, would we give them notice to terminate even ahead of their termination date with us to save a few bucks?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we've already been in contact with them about this, and they are completely amicable and working with us to get to a point to make the transition. All of our outstanding letters of credit have been returned, so we are not. We've replaced them with cash in the meantime in order to transition facilities quickly. So at this point, the only charge we will be incurring with Barclays is the uncollected fee. And we intend that when this Union Bank facility is ready, we can make a seamless same-day transition between the facilities.
And we can do that ahead of, what was it, July 31st?
Yes. Yeah, we will be. Yes. So December 19th is when the cash portion expires, which is a large part of the commitment fee as well. So we will be doing it ahead of that. Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I love your questions, Kathy. You're saving us nickels and dimes every day.
That's what I do in real life, running my
Excellent.
own business.
No, I love it. I love
The
it.
nickel and dimes add up for real money.
They absolutely do. And that's our responsibility to our residents, is to save them as
Absolutely.
much money as possible. Outstanding. If there's no other questions on this item, let's go ahead and move on to item number 6, which is the lease extension. Jason?
Great. Adrian, if you could please share. Great. We could go to the next screen. So staff has been occupying the space at 1999 Harrison Street as a subtenant since August 1 of 2019. So we've been there 3 years. The lease will expire at the end of October. We are looking to extend this lease for 12 months, and we will be extending this instead of a subtenant as an actual tenant. So this will be directly with the building owner rather than with Mechanics Bank, who is the current direct tenant. This is because we're still developing the new building. Design and layouts are basically still being finalized, and work is still being done. This is, of course, as one would expect, construction generally goes on longer than estimates at times, and this is one of those times. There's a lot of permitting delays and still material bottlenecks in the economy that are kind of extending this. And so we're seeking to extend this 12-month lease, or extend this lease to an additional 12-month lease to maintain our office space. Next slide, please, Aiken. So the terms of this lease is that there will be a base rate of $46,193 per month. This is about a $5,000 increase per month than our current lease. And it will require a 1-month security deposit. So we are still kind of negotiating some non-financial points, such as definitions, utility requirements, parking, just the ancillary aspects that go with the lease that aren't related to the lease rate. We're looking to finalize this next month. And because the lease expires on the 31st, so we'd like to get it we'd like to finalize it before then. And so we're requesting authorization to finalize and sign this month so that when it is ready, we can just enter into the agreement.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions on this item?
I do.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. So I'm curious why we're going away from the sublease and doing it direct with the building owner.
Yeah,
I can speak to that, Jason. Yeah. So the reason is because the tenant who we sublease from, their lease is up. So we subleased from them for the term of the agreement. And so Mechanics Bank was our
Master tenant.
Whatever. Yes. Okay, exactly. They
Yeah.
were the tenant, we were their subtenant. And so their lease is up and they don't want to extend. But we do, and so that's why we're going directly to the building owner.
Okay, and is this a triple net lease or a gross lease?
Great question.
Yeah.
Joseph, do you have any thoughts on that one? I believe currently it's a triple net lease. So I believe it is a triple net lease currently, and that's not a term that has been raised to me as something that's changing. So I would expect it to be a triple net lease.
Well, so if it's triple net, then if this is the base rent of $46,000, then we're going to have a CAMT payment for taxes and insurance and building maintenance and so forth on top of this.
Maybe I'm getting my terms. Aren't triple net leases where you pay everything is one?
No, that's a
It's
gross
all in.
lease.
Okay, there you
A
go.
gross lease is all in.
You can tell how deep into the specific details I am here. I believe this in the past, it's been an all-in lease, so we pay one fee for everything, and that is what I believe we're continuing to do.
All right, so that's our family business, is we're on the landlord side of the commercial.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, so yeah.
So that's why
Yeah.
this
Yes.
amount seemed really high to me, and that's why. So it must be gross where everything's covered.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what our currently it's an all-in amount, pays us for our utilities.
Hey, Nick, this is
Okay.
Howard, and I can
Okay,
confirm
fine.
this is a gross lease. They are covering the utilities.
Yep.
And they're covering taxes and insurance and
Yeah. So it's an all-in price, right?
all. Okay. And we ended up 5,000 more a month.
Yeah,
From-
what I'll say in this negotiation, and, I don't want to go too deep into the specifics because it's not fully closed, but
Sure.
Generally speaking, what my observation has been is when there was a lot of, there was real interest in us doing a 7-year, more typical term, those longer 5, 7, 10-year terms. That's what landlords are most interested in. But when it's a 1-year, there are just kind of aren't as many options, I would say, on the table. And given our circumstances where we're going to be moving into our building,
Right.
in the next, call it 8 to 12 months, we really needed something that was really short term. And then, sort of the market, we did, I wouldn't say a deep assessment, but we did work with the broker who helped us acquire this space initially and buy our building to assess options. And they really just said there are no, unless you want to go to WeWork, which has its own challenges, there really are no options for a 1-year lease with the square footage that you need.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Kathy.
Right. I'm sorry. Mike. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, all right, I thought you were done, Kathy.
Yeah, I am.
I would
done.
just note too, this is Howard. I would just add that in this circumstance, just as a reminder, our sublease was at a rate that was, I think it was done 7 years ago. So obviously market conditions have changed, and so that's part of the reason why there's sort of
Yeah,
a
that's
modest increase in price.
That's a really good point, given it's all in. Okay.
This current rate is below what we see, what our agent indicated to us as market. So we felt comfortable with it, given it's a short-term lease.
Okay.
Ms. Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I appreciate staff's comments to Member Nairn's questions. They answered a lot of my questions. Just wanted to make sure we're doing our due diligence. Is this the best bang for a buck? It does seem like a lot of money, but I guess the only other question I have is I appreciate that it is a gross lease, and thank you for that explanation. That makes sense. But I just want to know what is currently happening in terms of the workforce. Are they working a hybrid, or just kind of give us a sense of how is this office even being utilized? Because it's my understanding we're not having meetings there. I don't know if members of the public have access. If you could just kind of give us an idea of how the office is
Sure.
actually being
I'm happy to
utilized.
I'm happy to walk through that. So I think that's actually a driver of why we are seeking to extend the lease, as opposed to just letting it expire and not having a place for some period. So October 1, EBC staff are returning to work on a 2-day-a-week basis. But given the growth in our staff and the size of the space, we're going to have it somewhere in the 25 to 35 people in the office Monday through Thursday. And so, different teams will be in on different days, depending on what other teams are there. We're trying to be very purposeful in asking people to return, and really focus on trying to have people who collaborate with each other have at least 1 day a week in the office with each other, so that we build some of that cohesion and have those more informal opportunities to work together. So, I think Monday through Thursday, we should have a level of occupancy, frankly, that's probably similar to what we had pre-COVID, given the growth in our staff. I would expect that as we return, we're going to evaluate the potential to host subcommittee meetings in our office in person as well. I think that will be something that, although will be somewhat dictated by you as members of the committee, as well as by the rules of the state of California. Are we going to at what point do we have to transition to fully in-person meetings? We do have a space that in our office that can host subcommittee meetings, not really big enough for full board meetings. For full board meetings, though, I will say that Adrian has been doing a lot of work to identify multiple locations to host in-person board meetings. And actually, we have a really kind of nice approach where we have, I think, at least 3 or 4 sites that we can run simultaneously, so that folks that live in the Tri-Valley or in South County have a place they could potentially go and not have to feel like they have to drive all the way up to Oakland for meetings. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Marquez?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick, for that. Any other questions on this item? By the way, Howard, if you're still listening, congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you. I am on and appreciate that.
Howard, I know you said that you're going to leave this in Jason's hands, but we knew at some point you were going to be behind the scenes somewhere.
Well, I gotta at least pop my head in, right?
So that is our agenda. Item 7 is committee member reports or staff reports. Committee members, anything that you want to share for the good of the group, or any items that you would like brought before this committee in the near future?
No, point of clarification. Did we need to do a motion to recommend?
I think this was an informational item, if I was not mistaken.
Okay,
Correct.
because he had on the bottom of the screen that they requested.
I think that's for the
Approval.
full, I think when it comes to the
Okay.
full board, I think that's what they're looking for at that point. Yeah.
We
So
will-
if there are no committee comments, staff, any comments for the good of the group? I see our next meeting will be October the 14th at 10 a.m.
October the 14th.
I'm sorry, did I say October the 14th? Any other questions or comments before we adjourn? Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank
Great.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you already.
Bye for now.